We're back from recess. Colleagues, we're still on the second reading, and we're still on Bill number 28-S on this special session called by the Governor of Guam. So we're on the bill. Is there anyone who would like to speak on the bill? Minority Leader, you're recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam Speaker, we received the notification last night about having to come into this session today for the purposes of deliberating on a bill sent by the governor. Took the time to be able to read the bill. And was reading the bill. I couldn't help but say to myself, you're asking us to provide you with the permission to do something that you already have the power to do, or that you had previously stated that you had the power to do? What for? Yeah, I listened this morning to some of the arguments, if you will, brought on the bill. And I want to bring to light an instance that occurred where this body had questioned the authority of the governor to be able to do something, and she basically said she did it because she's the governor. For some that are, and it's understandable that there are some individuals in this body that were not here in 2022 in the 36th Guam Legislature, and there are some that are here that were here. So for those who weren't here, I'm going to inform you about this, and for those who were here, I'm going to remind you about this. In May of 2022, the governor had implemented pay raises and bonus pays to employees of the Guam Department of Education. And she gave at that time the teachers 20%, and that any other employee that was within the Guam Department of Education an incentive pay of $5,000 to the tune of close to $21 million. I questioned the authority of the governor to be able to do this in light of there was no executive order, there was no authorization statute, it was simply a memorandum that said this will be implemented. Then there was a question as to whether or not the implementation of that pay raise was going to hold muster, because we were in the midst of a budget discussion that did not include the authority, the authorization for the pay raises. Remember that? Yeah. And so, long story short, the authorization needed to be provided just to ensure that our teachers and those deserving of the pay raise got their raises. But it was kind of interesting because in all of that discussion, this body was told those pay raises were given under her authority, and as authority of the governor of Guam, she was able to do this. And that she worked with the Guam Department of Education to be able to find the $21 million. And don't worry, okay? It was able to be paid for. You know where the $21 million came from? It was from federal funds that were supposed to be allocated for the repair of schools that they said they didn't need because they weren't going to be able to meet the deadlines. They will make up for it somehow. And the same time that they did that, where they took the money away from the repairs, the school repairs, of which is the root of this problem today, this government had at least $50 million in excess cash, in excess monies, that all it would have taken was a simple letter or a simple memo to us or a piece of legislation asking us to be able to appropriate it. So I find it very interesting that while I didn't, you know, the teachers do deserve the raises, it was the process and the manner of which it was taken. It was taken under her authority as governor of Guam because she can do it. She can do that for the Guam Department of Education, but when we ask her to, in being able to continue that function in the repair of schools, she says, oh, I need permission. Make up your mind. We were able to do that for one, but not for the other? And this morning, there was an implication of this being political because people are running for governor. Well, guess what was happening prior to August of 2022 or May of 2022? Somebody was running for governor then. So it was good then, but not now? There's nothing in the bill that's before us that contains any provision that she can provide, she can do on her own right now. This is based on what she did in 2022. And remind you, this was based on the provisions island-wide that she did in 2020. I am the governor and you have no say. So what are we doing with this bill? This is nothing but affirming what she can already do. We need legislation for that? She scoffed at us when we wanted to be able to back her up in 2020 in 2022 for the pay raises. There was money that was available back then in the coffers. Maybe they didn't want us to get involved because they wanted to take all the credit. Take the credit. As it was said earlier today, I don't care who takes credit, just get it done. Then do it. You proved it in 2020, you proved it in 2022. So what do you need from us? Lastly, last time I checked, we live in a democracy where there's 3 branches of government, only 3 branches of government. The executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. GDOE sure doesn't fall under the judiciary. And it's far beyond our bounds as a legislature. We don't have enforcement authority. We don't have the ability to say, to move assets. There's only one branch of government that can do that. So, if it was good in 2022, why isn't it good in 2024? Oh, I forgot. Nobody's running for governor in 2024. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the bill? On the bill?
I still have another amendment being proffered to be sent in. Then I'll speak on the bill.
Speaker Therese, you're recognized.
Jesus Masi. So I've been reviewing the bill that the governor has sent down and asked us to come into special session to pass. And it pretty much, as stated earlier, there's there's three provisions in this bill. One is that's saying effective immediately and for 2 more years, or 3 more, until January 2027, 2.5 years more, all duties, responsibilities, and authority of the Guam Education Board and the superintendent shall be transferred to the governor of Guam. All duties, responsibilities, and authority transferred. And Section 2 of the bill says that the Guam Education Board and the Superintendent of Education shall have the duties, responsibilities, and authority as delegated by the Governor of Guam. And Section 3 removes this. Well, Section 3 says that we're not going to affect their compensation of the superintendent or the tenure of the current board, nor the manner of the election of the board. And Section 4 says, Effective immediately, the powers of the Guam Department of Education Financial Supervisory Commission shall be suspended. It was, you know, we've heard the governor say these things, like, I have no authority over education, and now she's proposing we must give her this authority if we want her help for education. And first of all, I think the bill that she proposes to give her this authority, a total blanket authority to pretty much wipe out any duties or responsibilities of the superintendent of education, who's actually been the one to get us to opening of 20 schools, to get us inspection of 20 schools, to get the repair of 20 schools, and the proposed or contracted repair, refurbishment of many more schools. This is the first superintendent to do that in like 20 years, to get these 20 schools open. Now we want to remove all his authority. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't sound cooperative. It doesn't sound like assistance. It sounds like a takeover. But we have not been able to see what the change would be. So you remove the superintendent, and what are you going to do in that place? There's no plan presented to us. Even the superintendent was on the radio saying he's not sure whether he can support this bill or not because he doesn't know the plan that goes along with it. Does that mean we're going to dump those contracts that he have pending for refurbishment? Does that mean that all the systematic plans that they have put in place for the 18 schools, throw those out the window, and we're going to just make up another plan by people who haven't been looking at this as closely or for as long a period of time as the current superintendent has? And he has a team, actually, that he's actually put into place. And I like the team. I like Mr. Pangilinan, and I only met him when he came in here. And he seems so very confident and optimistic that they have grown their team. They have the skills. They just don't have enough. So they can work on these schools. He's confident they can make them pass inspection. The problem is they couldn't do all 18 schools at one time. And that's why we asked the governor to create additional teams with the very capable and skilled people that she has in other agencies. And she had already, months ago, told us that she had the authority to make GPA help. GPA is an autonomous agency. But we have seen this with every governor. They are able, when somebody needs help, to move agencies, to move the resources of our government to help. We see it when we need it. We've seen it before. It's just a very strange predicament that we're in today because we're not seeing it. And she wants in here this blanket authority to overrule the superintendent, overrule the board, make the policy that the board's supposed to make, without telling us what policy is it that the board made that she doesn't agree with, without telling us which plan of the superintendent's she doesn't agree with and which ones we should put in place. It's us closing our eyes and saying, okay, let's ignore all the information that we actually finally got. Close our eyes and say, whatever you want. I have seen no basis to close our eyes like that. I think that's not our job. Our job's the opposite. It's to open our eyes to hear every detail that we can get and to have them say it out loud, because it was in the saying out loud and the different voices that I think that they were able to better their plan. Just like in here, with more voices, we are able to better legislation. And it also doesn't make sense, this complete takeover of the superintendent and the Board of Education's job, the entire education, because of what we've seen throughout the rest of the government. We are struggling in so many areas of the government to meet our mandates, the mandates of these agencies. We have done some very good things. The governor has done some very good things, but I would not say that we have completed our mission in so many, including Guam Memorial Hospital, public health. And so we've got our hands full. And again, I liked the plans of the superintendent, and he has really expedited them with the help of the board, hopefully with the help of the governor and the agencies who she said she's pulling together. Last night, she said she's pulling together a team. Later on that night, I don't know if that means the team's no longer going to be pulled together unless she gets this power, or she's still going to pull together those teams for the Department of Education's assistance. That's not clear either. I'm not sure if that's like an ultimatum given to us, like, give me all this power or I'm not going to help them at all. But the timing of it, it just kind of sounds like that. It sounds like it wasn't a good faith effort that I'm going to pull teams together, because I've talked to the superintendent and I talked to the board chair, and that's what they need. They need more manpower. They need more skilled workers. They've been saying this is exactly what they need, and this is exactly what the governor could provide, and this is exactly what we authorized a year ago for the governor to provide, to detail employees of the government of Guam to assist in skilled work for the Department of Education, to fix the schools, to detail investigators. There is no backlog. One of my colleagues said there's a backlog at public health. That's not the case anymore. No one testified that there is. They said they've got a lot of work, but there's no backlog, and there's no reason in the world that the governor cannot detail DPW inspectors who are building inspectors that they cannot assist to get up to speed in the public health codes. But that's not even the issue. But that can be done if that was the issue. It's just really a matter of doing what she said she was going to do last night, getting together these teams of skilled employees, so that while the maintenance teams of the Department of Education are in a couple schools, these teams can be in a couple more schools. That's 4 at one time versus 2 at one time, or versus 1 at a time. That's the difference. That's what we need. We don't need a new mastermind for the plan. We don't need a new procurement, because we finally got the procurement moving, it looks like. After a year of the governor holding on to the $20 million and not procuring for the Department of Education what she needed to, what they needed after the typhoon, she gave it back, so that now they've had to do that. So now we want to give her back authority over all the money and all the hiring at the Department of Education? What is that for? They said money was not the issue. They've built their teams up as much as they feel they can at this point, and that they can sustain in the long run. And we'll see in the upcoming budget how much more they can sustain for the long run. But for this very immediate, urgent period, we need help from the other agencies. I don't know, and I very much worry about this move by a governor, any governor, to take back the total control of the Department of Education, because of the history of the Department of Education and how it took us, the legislature back then, the community, it was even the Board of Education back then, who went to Congress and lobbied to change the Organic Act. It was no small feat, it was huge. They changed the Organic Act to change it away from the governor only to the government of Guam, because they needed some checks and balances there that was not happening. They wanted to get politics out of the Department of Education's hiring, the Department of Education's management of facilities or lack of management of facilities. They wanted to get it out of who's going to be superintendent. And yet we have given, and after the Organic Act was changed, the law itself mandating whether it would be a governing board or it's a governing and an elected board at first, and then it turned to not a governing and only a policy board. These were also governors getting involved, influencing these changes. At one point, they gave a lot more power back to the governor to control all the central funds, the federal funds. Then they switched it back, and that's what we have now, and that's from a lot of work. And if we want to re-examine the core of the Department of Education, we can do that. In fact, there is a bill routing around asking that the Department of Education board be a governing board. We haven't even voted on that. But the governor now wants to be the governing person for the Department of Education. I just think to redo all these efforts that we have made over the years is again going backwards. Just like not enforcing the sanitary rules, to me, was going backwards. When we have come so far, they've got 20 schools going, we just need to keep going. Or make a policy decision that you don't like sanitary rules, and we're going to live like some other countries. And again, we have given the Department of Education, in an effort to get the gubernatorial politics out of it, over the years, we've given them their own authority for procurement, their own authority for hiring. They have 3,600 employees. I wonder why somebody wants to be in charge of that. We've given them their own dedicated funding sources through the real property taxes and many other things. Let's not go backwards. We have an urgent need right now. We need a massive influx of help. Hopefully, we don't need that. They can take care of it for the long term, but for right now, to open schools, that's what they need. I don't think they need this bill. This was not even the bill that the governor discussed with the superintendent or the board chair. She discussed helping them. She didn't discuss taking over all power of the Department of Education. It's not necessary. We've given her the authority. She never even used it. But she just said yesterday she doesn't need anything from us. She can do that. She can detail employees from the rest of the agencies of the government to the Department of Education. So I ask if that's what she does, and that we not do what this bill asks, and that's to turn over the entire power to the governor for the Department of Education after we have come so far over the years, our entire community.
Thank you. Anyone else on the main motion? Anyone else? Senator Perez?
It's hard to come after that speech, I think, but a lot of it, really resonated with me. After our discussion in the emergency session, I felt really positive. Even though we didn't pass the bill, I felt really positive of the progress we made in this hall. Everybody was on the same page. There was movement in regards to emergency procurement. There was movement in regards to variances. because I think that was one of the problems. I know even though DOE has been meeting weekly with the Department of Public Health, there was some misunderstanding regarding variances, that it would not diminish the amount of demerits. So those discussions are really vital in expediting, facilitating schools opening up. The other thing I saw was that, really bringing in the community, the importance of these discussions was to open up become more transparent to our community as to the needs of our students. And to make sure that we all have an all hands on deck approach. It's not just DOE's problem, it's the community that needs to get involved. And so, we were getting information from various schools. They need the assistance. And, many of my colleagues are working towards assisting them, from, painting, water blasting, even supplies. And that's where our focus should be. Our focus should be in the manpower, in providing resources to these schools so they can meet the sanitary regulations. In our discussions, two schools passed. And I believe that there are more to come, and especially if the community is all hands on deck. And I truly believe that, it was really comforting to see the panel last week, or was it this week? Last week, work together on this. Some of the information was not brought to light, even between the board and the superintendent, and it came to light during those discussions. I felt very comforted that everyone was going to be working together. And that's how we left the emergency sessions, that things were moving. Even the timelines were moved up. Before we had these discussions, the inspections were not going to, for some of these schools, the inspections was not going to happen to the end of the school year. And so because of these discussions, it got pushed up. And as a result, the work got even more focused. The need for the work to be done got more immediate and focused. And so I think that's where the energy should be placed. And that's what I would like to see. I would like to see us all working together to get these schools open, passing their sanitary permits. And of course, there are some schools, as we know, the refurbishment schools, those on the list, on the refurbishment list, are going to require a little bit more time. But even the superintendent had a plan, and his team had a plan, that there's going to be pairing of schools. So I think, again, in regards to this bill, I think that, there are resources can still be provided without this bill. In fact, even GDOE has created MOUs with agencies such as GPA, who has been instrumental and very vital to this efforts. And so we're really grateful for that. We're really grateful for these interagency supports, and especially these agencies that have the expertise. This is critical for our community. I think that the time, we can't waste time. The action is needed, and I think that's where we need to focus on, is providing the manpower. And it can be done without legislative interference. Yeah, and I do want to, support the superintendent and his team, to remove that power from him really takes us back a couple of steps, because this is a group that has been empowered, that has gone through the challenges, and they've overcome those challenges and found ways to adapt. Now is not the time to take away that empowerment. They are empowered. We need to support them in their leadership. And I'm very grateful for their leadership in this. It has been a struggle, especially with a new superintendent. He just came in not too long ago. But he's up for the challenge, and he's shown progress. And that's where we need to focus our support to Masi.
Cesar Masi. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the bill? On the bill. He was going to. Senator Barnett.
Cesar Masi, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to rise in opposition to the bill. I first want to agree with the retiring speaker who basically said that all the authority the administration needs is there. I want to go back to 2018 when this governor, this lieutenant governor were campaigning for office. One of the big campaign promises they ran on was rebuilding Simon Sanchez High School. Now, back in that first election campaign, they never said they didn't have the authority to rebuild Simon Sanchez High School. Never said that. They never said we need a bill to let us take absolutely all control of the Guam Department of Education so we can rebuild Simon Sanchez. And now, almost 7 years later, 2022, this governor, this lieutenant governor, ran for re-election. I'm going to read from their campaign platform. It is the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration's priority to upgrade and maintain the current school facilities and to undertake an assessment of the actual number of school facilities that are needed to meet the student population on Guam. And you can rest assured that continued collaboration between the governor, lieutenant governor, GDOE board members, parents, educators, and other stakeholders will continue. Nowhere in that campaign promise did they say that we don't have the authority to keep our campaign promise. We don't have the authority to upgrade and maintain our public school facilities. Last night, the governor issued a special address on education. And in that address, she finally caved to the public pressure, to the people of Guam who are watching this governor and this lieutenant governor stand on the sidelines while our public schools struggle to overcome challenges and meet safety and sanitation guidelines. The help that was promised by the lieutenant governor since February of last year. Looks like last night, the governor told the people of Guam that that help's finally coming. And I quote, "We will use all of our government resources to include autonomous agencies to ensure completion of repairs." Again, my legal authority and oversight over these agencies is limited by Guam law, but I have asked these agencies to step up and commit their own resources to help our kids. I have asked them to send their maintenance workers and their engineers, their mechanics, plumbers, and welders, and anyone else who can help. Cesar Masi, Governor. Cesar Masi, Lieutenant Governor. for finally sending the help that our public school kids need. The special address on education concludes by saying our administration will work as fast as humanly possible to restore our campuses and ensure your safe return. Nowhere in that announcement that the help was going to come, nowhere in that announcement that our public schools were going to finally receive the full assistance and the maximum effort of a whole-of-government approach. I spoke with the superintendent last night. He met with the governor and the board chair, Mary Okada, and the governor promised this help. The superintendent told me a bill that would allow the governor to take absolute control of the Guam Department of Education was never discussed. In fact, the superintendent and the board were both blindsided by this effort. And my colleagues are right. We were in here for 2 weeks discussing education issues. We had the whole of government sitting in this table right here for 2 weeks. And let me ask you, in those 2 weeks, how many times did someone ask to give the Guam Department of Education over to the governor? How many times did someone say, you know what we need? We need to just come into session on a Friday and hand the keys to the kingdom of GDOE over to the governor. I'll tell you how many times. No one said that. This administration and even colleagues in this body want to say that all we do is blame. No one is being blamed here. We didn't come out and say we were going to use the whole of government to help fix the schools. That was Adelut. And I'm sorry if you think holding people accountable is blaming them. But our schools have deserved this help. Not since last February when that press release came out, but since this administration took office and ran on the promise that they were going to help fix our schools. This bill doesn't change that schools have to be inspected by public health. This bill doesn't allow schools to open faster. This bill only gives the governor more power. And nobody has asked for that except this governor. And she has had the power all along to help our schools. And for whatever reason, she decided not to do it until now. Someone said, we voted to close the schools. No, we didn't. We listened to parents who said, don't send my kids into schools that aren't safe. Don't send my kids into schools that aren't clean. Don't send my kids into schools that don't have working toilets. One of my colleagues said that Guam schools are safe. If you look at the GDOE self-inspection reports, I beg to differ, but work is being done right now. Feverishly, fervently, they're working to correct all of these issues. So when you say the schools are safe, I say they're almost safe. Someone said the schools are warm. Yes. In a classroom without an air conditioner, you know how warm it gets in our schools? 90 degrees, 85 degrees. And I only know this because I've sat in classrooms without working ACs. I've been in a classroom in Marshall Sablon where they finally got an AC installed, and these kids were dancing, they were celebrating. They wanted to take a picture next to the air conditioner. One of my colleagues said these schools are comforting. How comforting is it when you send your kid to school and they don't want to even use the bathroom for the whole day because the bathroom is calakas? It doesn't seem very comforting to me. So we didn't vote to close schools. We voted to hold a standard for our children that they have long deserved. Let's talk about what's happening right now at the schools. Right now, the whole of Guam is out there trying to lend a hand. Up at D.L. Perez, a teacher's assistant, Ms. Tamar, is changing fixtures in the bathroom sinks. Several contractors messaged me yesterday asking for the punch list. I sent it out, and guess what? Those contractors are at the schools now, lending a hand. We were painting the deck at the elementary school yesterday. When we left this session hall just a few days ago, what I took away was that the Guam Department of Education and the Department of Public Health and Social Services were going to work hard to get this done once and for all, so we don't see any further delays in the next school year. And I want to kind of go over a little bit of this timeline of this barrage of media releases that went out last night. So first, the governor announced that she was going to help the schools. And so I put a release out that said, "Thank you, Governor, it's about time." In my release, I said that the activation of this assistance proves that this governor doesn't need to take over the entire Guam Department of Education to help our kids. And then they sent out another release. I think they like me over there. Someone really likes me over there. They sent out a release that said, basically, oh no, we're going to help the schools, but we're only going to help them a little bit, unless you give us control of the Guam Department of Education. The release from the governor says, "I'm sending agencies in to help the schools open, but they can only do temporary Band-Aid fixes." Why? Why would you send these agencies in there to only do temporary Band-Aid fixes? Are our public school kids, are they too poor? You don't want to help them? You only want to help them a little? You're going to send in the agency, and when they see a big problem, what are you going to say? "Oh, don't fix that. We're only doing Band-Aid." GDOE is messaging, calling. There's a lot that needs to be examined with the implementation of such a bill and what existing statutes it would conflict with. I agree. Don't tell me a 2-page bill isn't going to cause problems when we're talking about an extreme power grab and a takeover of the Guam Department of Education. But they only want it until 2027, just for the campaign of Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. We want to talk about who's running for governor in here? There's only one person on this island who's announced they're running for governor, and that's this Lieutenant Governor, Josh Tenorio. That's it. No one else. No one in this body. There's only one person out there who's campaigning for governor. And coincidentally, that's how long the governor wants GDOE for. We worked hard to take the politics out of education, and now because of politics, we're trying to put the politics back in. The governor will have full control of the hiring and firing. She gets to pick the people to put in. They're going to turn the Guam Department of Education into the Guam Department of Elect Joshua Tenorio. And I say, hell to the no. Come 2027, they're going to give back the Guam Department of Education, if we're lucky, with 2,000 more employees, political hires, used to buy votes for the 2026 election. As a parent of public school students, I know our public school stakeholders have been waiting a long time for this help from the governor. They've been waiting a long time for safety and sanitation standards to be implemented in our schools. And that's what this is about. It's about schools that are clean, schools that are safe, so that our students can concentrate on learning and not concentrate on the mold, the hot classroom, the toilet that doesn't work. So let's let the superintendent do his job. Because there are many who have said, nothing has happened, nothing has changed. But it's been this legislature, through our leadership, through our pressure, through our monthly oversight hearings, we have overcome decades of neglect to our public schools. And in the span of 1 year, and remember, public health said it would take 600 days to inspect these schools. But in the span of 1 year, even without the help from the governor and lieutenant governor, half of our schools have come into compliance with public health standards, and more are on the way. Just today, received word that Marshall A. Sablan and Hoggett passed their public health inspection. So the work to bring our schools into compliance is being done. And it wasn't the legislature that pushed back the opening of schools, it was the superintendent, because he wants to do as much work as he can to make sure that when our kids go back to school on August 15th, or when they go back to school on August 22nd, that they're going into schools that are clean, that they're going into schools that are safe. My colleagues, safe and clean schools should not be an impediment, and they should never be a hindrance. So I ask that we continue to stand united and support this standard for our parents, our students, and our schools. Si Diyos Masi, Madam Speaker.
Jesus Masi. On the bill. Senator Parkinson, on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When I think about the discussion around this bill, it's really disheartening how we've lost focus. Some of the most jaded look at this legislation as a power grab. But power is really, in this case, responsibility. And blame, all you got to do to cast blame is just say, I'm not responsible. There's too much blame. There's too much saying, I'm not responsible, they are. Pointing fingers. We have a governor saying she's willing to accept responsibility. And what do we hear in response? More blame. I say, thank God someone is willing to take responsibility. You know how rare that is in government for someone to say, I want responsibility, put this on me? Because I tell you what, no one else has said that. And because no one else has said that, that's why we are in this mess. No one willing to say, put this on me. It's on my responsibility, nobody else. Think about the kids in this situation. These kids have lost time to Mawar, to COVID, and now to this. They just want to go to school. They have been robbed of their development, time to be in the classes,
socializing, not just with their teachers, but with their peers, with their coaches, with school facilities, with the lunch lady. That's time you never get back. With this legislation, the governor says she can fix it. If we pass this legislation, she will fix it. For me, that's the end of the conversation. I will support any solution in this emergency, whether it be giving the superintendent more time, as suggested by Senator Duane, or by going into receivership, as suggested by the Attorney General, or by taking responsibility and saying, put this on me, like the governor is doing. I support any and all of those solutions. Whatever it takes to open, that's what we've lost sight of here. Whatever it takes to open and get these kids back in school. We put the governor in charge of the education system. To her detractors, then have weekly oversight meetings on the Gov. Require reports. Give her this responsibility. And then if she fails, and I hope she does not, you hold her accountable for it. You put her feet to the fire, and we figure out what we got to do to fix it. I don't care who gets credit. I don't care who gets blamed. Schools need to be opened. I don't care if the governor is posturing politically. If she says she can fix it, I say we let her. Students need to be learning. COVID taught us that not being in class has negatively affected our students. Our best and our brightest and our future will lose out on this development time that we cannot get back. I don't understand the skepticism. If the governor says she can fix it with this bill, that is the end of the conversation. Give her the authority. Give her the authority. Let her be the one responsible. Because no one else is saying they are. And if we vote this bill down, so be it. That is the actions of the body. We reserve that right. But then what's the answer? What is our answer then? I welcome any and all solutions. So if we do not like the governor's, let us come up with a better one. I ask my colleagues to support this measure because finally we have somebody saying, put it on me, give me the responsibility. And I say, we let her answer that call. Thank you, Madam Chair. With that, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
On the bill, is there anyone who'd like to speak on the bill? If not, Senator San Augustine, on your motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam Speaker, when we walked into this session, I think everybody seems to forget what was read on page 2. That was read to everybody and to the people of Guam. Page 2 states very specifically, amendments transfer these powers from the governor, authorize the legislature to enact laws to govern our public schools. As the Senate report for 1996 amendment, this structure did not preclude us from delegating authority over public schools back to the governor. In other words, In 1986, the Organic Act was changed to reflect that the governor didn't have control of the legislature, of the education. Okay? When this bill was introduced, the First Amendment, I do have an amendment, okay? First Amendment was to prevent the governor from having full control, such as the hiring, the administration of federal funds, the selection of the superintendent, the attendance, a bunch of stuff. Gosh, 1, 2, 3, 7 items. That failed. One amendment that was in the hopper was to change it from 2 years to 6 months. Why consider it if you couldn't even prevent the governor that wanted to be in charge from controlling everything that everybody's talking about? Power. Put power. Want to talk about power? Go to the GPA. And then as we move along, there's other amendments that were being considered. The WAS. You know, one of my colleagues here is a former teacher. She knows about WAS. She knows what the schools go through. I'm going to assume that. I know what the schools go through because I was on the board. And I visited all the WAS accreditation team when I was there for 6 years. So I'm familiar with that. I don't want anybody messing with when the schools are going through the accreditation process. Fine. But with all the amendments to make sure that we maintain control, the Guam Legislature still has the upper hand. It made it weak. My amendment, I'll just introduce it anyway. My amendment is specific to line 1 to 3, page 2. The section that talks about notwithstanding the other provisions of law effective immediately until January 4th, 2027, the powers of the Guam Department of Education Financial Supervisory Commission shall be suspended. I recommended we delete that. Why? As the budget chair, I need to know what's going on at the Department of Education. Where are they spending the grant money? Where's all the money going that impacts the schools? That was one part. But you know, when we want to talk a little bit of history about DOE, just remember when COVID came and the ARP money flooded Guam? It was $287 million went specifically to DOE. And before that, the Army Corps of Engineers said, you need $100 million to defer the maintenance of the Department of Education. $100 million. We do the simple math. Start with the 287, then minus what was given to charter school, you're down to 243. You still had enough money to fix the schools. And if you all remember, we were all pretty much on lockdown, but only business that were open was stores that sell food, anybody selling drugs, the pharmacy, and construction. Construction. Not to slam DOE, but did they RFP to fix the schools? We all remember, one of my colleagues said in 2022, they prefer to give the pay raise. Okay. Requested by then the superintendent. Deferred that. So they deferred the maintenance to do the pay raise. But they still had money. Did they do it? No. We got a new superintendent. Coincidentally, we basically have a new board. I introduced a bill to make the board a governing board so they can be involved and be in charge. Because you know, when you're a policy board, to a certain extent, you're restricted in what you can move, in what you can say and do. And as a policy board, you can't really tell the superintendent what to do unless you create a policy that tells them that. Then you can say, it's on policy. It's policy number whatever, you need to comply. But before I go on talking, Madam Speaker, why don't we go ahead and settle my amendment request, and then we'll be done, and then I can continue speaking. Ma'am.
There's an amendment to remove Section 4 of the bill. It's been passed out. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this amendment to remove Section 4?
On the Senator Joseph Augustine amendment, Speaker Teresa, I recognize you.
Seduce Masi. I rise in support of this amendment. This amendment takes out this part of the bill that the governor sent down that said that she wants to remove any oversight of the this is a supervisory commission of the finances of the Guam Department of Education. This commission was created, it's the Education Financial Supervisory Commission. It's pretty much a group of different people, including the legislature's Office of Finance and Budget, including the Department of Education's financial people, and others. And what they do is they look at the finances of the Department of Education and make sure that they are not overspending, that they are managing their grants correctly. They've got millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funds. We've been put on, federal control or watch for so many years, finally got out of that. And so this supervisory commission had been created years ago because of that, because of the overspending, because of the financial control by previous governors of the Department of Education's funds, and that those funds dedicated to education were not getting to education. So it's an excellent amendment to take it out. I don't even know why they would think to put this in this bill, unless they intended to do something with the money that the Department of Education isn't currently doing with the money. And that is trying to recruit teachers, spending it on the refurbishment of schools, finally when they got that $20 million back, using the federal funds according to their purposes. Now, the Department of Education continues to have challenges. We've seen it in previous oversight hearings as to federal compliance. So does the rest of the government of Guam, including our Homeland Security Office, if the news reports are correct. And unfortunately, we had to reschedule an oversight hearing on that agency to look over what we were going to do with those reports. So I think if this bill by any chance passes and the governor takes control of the entire Department of Education, this is when this commission is even more needed, especially because of our just recent return to good financial status and able to control our own accounts without having that very expensive third party doing that for the Department of Education. And I'm trying to figure out responsibility. One of my colleagues has proposed that the governor's willing to take responsibility, we should give it to her. We should close our eyes, don't have a plan, don't know how she's going to spend the money, and just give it to her. We don't do that with any of the government of Guam's money. We ask every agency to come in here and tell us how they're going to spend that money. And what is it that she wants to change in how the Department of Education is spending their money? How they're hiring, who they are hiring. How does she want to take responsibility of that and change that? Giving responsibility, if you don't know what they're going to do with it, really seems like pass the bucket. Shirking your own responsibility. That's what we're here for, to see how these funds are going to be spent, so that we can determine whether they need more or they need less, whether they need more authority or less authority, whether emergency procurement works or whether it is a system of abuse. That is the delicate balance that legislatures have played year after year after year. I don't know why in this day and age, legislature would even think of closing its eyes on a budget this large, on just a supervisory commission, on when we finally got schools to open in compliance with sanitary rules, and we have heard of the exact plan. Maybe some of you weren't here to hear the plans of the superintendent and his facilities management team as to how they're going to move forward, or to hear the board as to exactly how they're going to use their emergency powers. But we heard very detailed plans. They have it fast-tracked, opening the rest of the 18 schools. The 20 schools plus 2, I guess, today, they're going to open on August 15th. They have taken responsibility. We have taken responsibility by passing laws, hard as they were, criticized as they were, for requiring sanitary rules to be complied with. We did that. And not a single person in the government, except for maybe the sponsor of another bill and the governor, has said, we don't need those rules, open the schools. Open the schools in whatever condition they are in. Today, despite all of those schools on the 18 list flunking their own self-inspections. It's like a circle of nonsense. We have seen the superintendent. I don't think he's a super political guy. I don't know, at first I wanted to laugh. I don't think he's very good at politics. But at this point, I'm saying thank God, because I think he's learned a lot of lessons. First of all, you can't trust people who say they're going to help you, they're going to take care of you, they're going to give me your $20 million and we will take care of it for you. I think he's learned that lesson. I don't think he's going to make that mistake again. He's hired a facilities management team that was between 20, maybe 20, and he's increased it to 50. He's opened 20 schools according to some very strict rules and guaranteed that those are safe for the kids, as much as he could. Their work is cut out for them. I don't see them shirking responsibility. And I don't see them asking us to do the easy thing either, to repeal the rules. Let's not follow those rules. They're too hard. Let's not have anybody look at our finances, because that's just too hard. How is it hard for a governor to manage the finances of the Department of Education without a supervisory commission looking at that? I don't see that to be difficult at all. I think it's unfathomable that we would even think about it after the status that we just got out of. That was hugely expensive. That's the money that we could have been spending on food, spending on facilities, spending on supplies. Because we gave that kind of close your eyes type of authority before. And I don't understand, what are we doing in this legislature if we cannot open our eyes, keep them open, keep our ears open? And why would we ever fall again for one person in this island wants to say they know how to do it? while we had an entire 15 panel of people with differing points of how this could be done, how it could be done better, how it could be done faster. And that's what we really need. We need more consensus. We need more. You got better ideas? Let's hear them. You've got better people? Let's see them. You offered them? Are they there? Let's take care of the Department of Education under the structure that we have. Let's definitely not close our eyes to how one of the biggest budgets of the entire government of Guam is managed, how the hiring is going to be managed. Let's not close our eyes to that. There is no reason that if the governor has great ideas that she cannot suggest them to the board, that she could not suggest them to the superintendent. They tried to follow her great ideas, like the 20 million after the typhoon. Take it. She took it. And now, while these people have got their contracts in place, expediting additional contracts, they got their facilities management team. They need more teams. They don't need more people taking their money and spending it elsewhere. Not if we're going to focus on getting these 18 schools open. There are other things that we need the governor to focus on, and that is the assessments of these schools. That was another thing, as my colleague read, that was promised in the campaign, the assessment of these schools. And I heard the superintendent say the same thing, that he's also assessing these schools for their long-term viability, and whether we really need new facilities. And the building of the new facilities that we have decided long ago that we needed. Let's move those ahead. That's another thing that the governor can be working on without us closing our eyes to and deleting our Educational Financial Supervisory Commission. So I applaud the sponsor of this amendment for making the amendment to take that out of the governor's bill. Her insistence that no one will have any look at the Department of Education's finances after she takes control of the Department of Education. I don't even think that we do that for any other agency in the government. She has that power of over the federal funds. Even those have to be reported. So I don't see why leaving this in the bill would solve anything, so I completely support this amendment. I say, if this bill's going to pass, let's make sure at the very least that our Office of Finance and Budget and all of those other members of this commission are going to continue to have their eyes on the finances. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else on the Joe San Augustine amendment? Anyone else on Senator Roy on the amendment? Not on the amendment. Would you wish to close? Are there any objections to the Joe San Augustine amendment? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Senator San Augustine, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to make one clarification because someone emailed me and was questioning when I mentioned the $287 million, that was ARP money that was given to DOE. Then when you minus all that money to charter school, it came down to 243, and that's what they're trying to spend now. That I wish they had overloaded a lot earlier. Just want to mention that. Okay? And with that, I have no further comments on the bill. Thank you.
You're welcome. Senator, is he on? Senator Roy Kanata on the... On the amendment? The amendment passed.
Senator San Augustine, on your original motion to place the bill in the third reading?
No, I didn't move that because I think Senator Canata wanted to speak because he hasn't spoken.
I know, but we recognize you at the end for that.
Okay.
You want to speak on
So,
it?
yeah, we just move it then to the third reading so we can move it to
Yeah.
vote.
So
and we
on
can
that
move on.
motion to place the bill as amended into the third reading, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, that motion carries. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but can I make a motion that we vote without engrossment?
There's a motion to vote on the bill as amended without engrossment. On that motion, is there any objection? There's an objection. All in favor of voting on the bill without engrossment, please raise your hand. That motion passes. All right, the clerks are ready. We are on the consideration of the daily file. We are on the third reading. There's only one bill, Bill 2, 8-S. Clerk, please read the title.
Bill number 28-S, as amended on the floor, introduced by Committee on Rules by request of Imagahagan Guahan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam. An act to grant Imagahagan Guahan temporary authority over the Guam Department of Education.
Roll call.
Senator Barnett. Senator Barnett, nay. Senator Blas. Senator Blas, nay. Senator Brown. Senator Brown, nay. Senator Dueñas. Senator Dueñas, nay. Senator Fisher. Senator Fisher, aye. Senator Lujan. Senator Lujan, nay. Vice Speaker Muñoz Barnes. Vice Speaker Muñoz Barnes, nay. Senator Parkinson. Senator Parkinson, aye. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, nay. Senator Canata. Senator Canata, nay. Senator San Augustine. Senator San Augustine, nay. Senator San Nicolas. Senator San Nicolas, aye. Senator Shelton.
Senator Canata, you're recognized.
Make a motion to excuse members not present.
On that motion to excuse members not present, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, that motion carries.
Senator Shelton excused. Senator Taitigui. Senator Taitigui, nay. Speaker Talahi. Speaker Talahi, nay.
Bill number 2, 8-S, received 3 ayes, 11 nays, 1 excused. Bill number 2, 8-S, failed by this body. We're now on brief extension of remarks. Is there anyone who'd like to be recognized? Senator Canata.
I make a motion to adjourn session.
There's, you'd like to waive the items, the rest of the items on the agenda? On that motion to adjourn our special session, is there any objection? There's an objection. All in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. We are adjourned.